please. Thanks.
All right, we are now live for the special NCTR Dialogue Honoring Indigenous Veterans panel. Good day, everyone. My name is Kaila Johnston, and I'm the Supervisor of Education, Outreach, and Public Programming at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. And here with me today, I have three Indigenous veterans from across Turtle Island. We have Jimmy Durocher from Saskatchewan, and Chamberlin from British Columbia, and then Doug Tizya, living in Manitoba, but originally from the Yukon. And so knowing we started a little bit late, I want to jump right into things by first passing the virtual microphone to Jimmy to give a short introduction about himself. Jimmy, you're good to go.
Thank you very much, and I want to wish each and every one of you a happy day. And it's really cold here right now. It's minus 25, and I'm on my way to Isle Lacrosse. We have a big veteran celebration there every year, and the whole community gets involved. And I was born and raised in Isle Lacrosse, and I joined when I was 17 years old, 16 and a half. I kind of didn't tell the truth too much, and I joined underage a little bit, but it was easy to do in those days because there was no computers. So they hand you a piece of paper, and you know, I just joined you know, a little bit earlier than I thought, or I should have, I guess. 1957. It's a long time ago.
Thank you, Jimmy, for that quick introduction. I'm now going to pass the virtual mic to Anne to give a short intro about herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Anne Chamberlin. I am from BC. I am Quikwasutnik Akwinamish. I have my status through my mother. My father is non-Indigenous. I was born in Sechelt, BC, raised in Nanaimo, and I joined the military back in February 1988 and released in October of 2017. I am continuing on with my work with the Canadian Armed Forces Indigenous programs, as an advisor, Indigenous advisor to the commanders of Canadian Defence Academy and Military Personnel Generation Group.
Thank you so much, Anne, for joining us. And I'm now going to pass the virtual mic to our final guest. Doug, if you could give a short intro about yourself, that would be great.
Hi, good morning. Thanks. My name's Doug Tizya. I'm half Soto and half Gwich'in. My mother's from Peguis and my dad's from a community called Old Crow. It's right on the top of the Yukon. I ended up joining the military in November of 2000 and did 7.5 years with two tours to Afghanistan. So, you know, it's pretty short career, but I did a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all three of our panelists for being here today, taking time out to speak with me and share this discussion with our guests who are joining us from Facebook. And so for those watching, please feel free to put your comments, to put your questions in the chat box. We're monitoring that. And at the end of today's discussion, depending on the length of time, we're going to pose those questions to our guests. Now, with that, this week, Indigenous veterans were honored on November 8th. This is a day of remembrance which came into fruition in 1994 as a way to recognize the contributions of those who served and gave their lives for this country, a country that we know didn't always treat Indigenous people well before serving, as well as when they returned home. And in fact, I'll share a little bit about my own family. I'm an intergenerational survivor, and my grandfather, Napoleon Pelche, he served with the Canadian Armed Forces from about 1938 to 46, so during the Second World War. And unfortunately, with his pension, it was a whole grand total of $33. So with that, knowing that, that begs the question, how has the treatment of our Indigenous veterans changed? What can we do to honor them throughout the year? How can we ensure their legacy of their contributions are never forgotten? And with my panelists here today, I'm going to ask each one of our guests a question, and they'll have about 5 or 7 minutes to answer each. And in fact, I'm going to start with Jimmy, who's joining us by telephone. Jimmy, let's start with you. As a Métis veteran, how do you feel treatment towards Indigenous and specifically Métis veterans has changed since you served? And if so, if it has changed, how has that changed?
Okay, one of the first things that I would like to maybe talk about a little bit is the fact that all Aboriginal people were not treated fairly when they got out of the services. You know, they did not get the kind of recognition and the help that they should have received when they got out of the armed forces. My own uncle, you know, I have two uncles and that served in the Second World War. One of them was Vital Morin was his name, and he was a prisoner of war, and he suffered a great deal physically and mentally, and as you can imagine, when you're a prisoner of war, you know, things are you know, very different. And the other one was a gentleman by the name of Prosper Lariviere. He was a sniper in the Second World War. And when he came home, he was never the same. These guys were never the same. They needed, you know, some of the things that other non-Aboriginal veterans got when they got out. You know, they were supposed to get education. They're supposed to get some economic development help, or at the very least, they're supposed to get a job. Now, particularly in northern Saskatchewan, you know, it's bad enough now in northern Saskatchewan where we don't get the services that, you know, that the bigger centers get. But it was bad enough. It was worse in those days because we didn't need. All we had was a telegraph, you know, telegraph line, and for our communications. So I remember my uncle Prosper Lariviere. He was never the same, and you know, and he turned into alcohol, and because of the you know, the atrocities that these people suffered when they were in the front lines, you know, busting through the walls, and he survived. He survived that. However, when he did get home, he was never the same. There was times when he was, you know, when he'd be drinking and then he'd disappear. And I don't know how many times we found him on a number of occasions hiding in the closet in the house, you know, and then we asked him, well, what's the matter? What's going on? He says, I think they're coming. I think they're coming. And he was drinking. Of course, alcohol had a lot to do with it, you know, but the point I'm trying to make is that there was no mental health for those people that suffered those kind of atrocities, you know, and Vital was never quite the same either. You know, he was only approximately 90 pounds when he got out of jail. He's a big man. And, you know, when he got in there, he was, you know, at least 175, 180 pounds maybe. He was 6 foot tall. And when he got out, there was not very much left of him. And he suffered a lot too. And but you know, the thing about that is they never received any help from the federal government or from the programs that were supposed to be available and that were available to non-Indigenous people. And that has always been a sore point as far as I'm concerned, and because they are not dealt with fairly in a fair manner. And as far as I'm concerned, these days now, at least we're bringing those things to the forefront. And the majority of these people that I knew that served in the First and Second World wars they never received any help. They're never, you know, they were left on their own. And as a matter of fact, in the First World War, there was a gentleman, a McCollum guy, who was gassed. They were using gas in those days, and nerve gas, and he got gassed, and then they shipped him home after the war, and they wouldn't even look after him because there was, you know, very little help in a hospital in those days. You got to remember that I come from a very small community, Isle Lacrosse, and an old lady, an elderly lady by the name of Mary Rose McCollum looked after him, and he was bedridden. His mental state was absolutely horrible, and his physical state was absolutely horrible. And he received no help from the federal or provincial or any government agency. And no, these are some of the things that stand out in my mind as far as the treatment of veterans after they were done, doing what they had to do. And you got to remember, they volunteered. They volunteered because they wanted to make sure that we never have to live under the regime of Hitler and those types of people that are, that try to change the world and try to make it, their own. And these people did not agree with that, and they joined up in a volunteer basis. And when they got home, they were not treated fairly. So that's all I'm going to say on that issue, because I am aware and I knew some of these people. When I was growing up, I was born in 1940, and I knew them all. I remember them coming home. I was 5 years old in 1945, and in 1946 they started coming home. And we tried to celebrate, of course, because we were happy that they were back. I remember my grandmother cooking pies and cakes, and they had a big dance welcoming them home. But no help for them. There was absolutely nothing done for them, and that's just, as far as I'm concerned, such a terrible thing for the federal government, to do, not to help these people in the same manner that they helped others who were given help with jobs and economic development and land and all that kind of stuff in southern Saskatchewan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. And I also wanted to give the opportunity for our two other panelists. Did you have any comments when it comes to this question that you would like to add? Keeping in mind, I do have questions for you both as well, but I thought I'd just open it up.
I'm okay. I'll just wait for my question.
And Anne, did you have any comments, or should I just pose you your question?
You can just carry on.
All right, not a problem. With that, I'll actually just add a little bit peppering more from my perspective as well. Although unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to meet my grandfather, I did get to hear some of the stories that were passed on through my mother and family. And one of the ones that was very striking is he had fought in Italy, and apparently when he had went overseas, his hair was as black as you can be, but when he came back, it was stark white. And they said it was from the trauma of what he had experienced and witnessed. And from what I heard, he didn't really speak about his actual wartime experiences, only that he had served overseas in some of the places that he had been to. But with that, Anne, I do have a question for you. You've spent 30 years in the armed forces, and now you work as an Indigenous advisor. How have you seen things changed over your career?
So we recognize the veterans weren't treated appropriately in the right way. And we, within the forces, value our Indigenous members, CAF members, Canadian Armed Forces members, even within the defense team. So public servants as well. I'm lucky enough in my position that I'm in that I work with the Canadian Armed Forces Indigenous entry programs.
Oh, it looks like we might have lost her. Oh.
Disconnected.
And you got caught off a little bit, so I'm going to advise we'll stop your video and we'll just have you share by audio. That might make it a little bit of a stronger connection while you speak.
Yeah, okay. So in the 30 years that I've been involved, I've seen a lot of improvements with the Defense Aboriginal Advisory Group, with access to elders, counselors, sweat lodges, the wearing of the Métis sash, the braids, we still have a long ways to go, but I do feel that we are making some headway in the right direction. And we are consulting with the right people to make sure that we do things in the right way.
Oop, you see me pause a little bit because I was just wanted to check with Anne. Did you have anything else you'd like to share for this particular question, or you're good?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Perfect. So this leaves my question for you, Doug. You served, as you mentioned earlier, you served 2 tours in Afghanistan. You were injured in that second tour in 2006, if I remember reading correctly. And in 2019, you were actually gifted I've misplaced my note here, but it was a Quilt of Honor, if I remember correctly.
Quilt of Valor.
Quilt of Valor, there we are. What was your experience like, and what kind of supports were there for you and your family through the healing journey that you went through?
Okay, well, let me begin here by saying that very honored to be invited to this panel today, and happy remembrance to all the fallen soldiers and to the currently serving members. So what happened was I joined up in 2000, and then as I did my basic training, and then I got sent to well, we were in Wainwright, and then we got sent to a station in Winnipeg in 2nd Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. And as we were clearing in, I was just gearing all my gear, and then 9/11 happened. So yeah, very shocking. So we got sent up to the airport, and that's when they landed all the planes all around the world. And yeah, that was the then if in the springtime I was on a plane to Afghanistan. I was just a new guy, and I had no idea what I was getting into. Like, I did all the training and everything, but I didn't get a chance to learn how to soldier properly yet in battalion. And but thrown into fire is kind of the thing I've become accustomed to, and but I had a lot of great teaching me the ropes and teaching me how to soldier, just proper weapons handling and all those details. But yeah, like the second tour wasn't, I mean, the first tour wasn't too eventful. We lost some guys, unfortunately, to a friendly fire incident, but it was a lot of walking around, and but we did, we were in the Shay, not Valley, a lot of bombing, and we did encounter some dead bodies here and there, but there was no combat at that time, so it really wasn't an uneventful tour in that sense. But on the second one is when in 2006 is when they started using IEDs on the roads and attacking us with mortars at our patrol bases. And so it was really, really more intense. And yeah, like, it's really how I can say it is, when you leave the wire, when you leave Kandahar Airfield, you're scared to death because you don't know if you're coming back. So a lot of the guys were puking, and and you just, what we talked about was, okay, man, we just got to accept death and just do our job. And if we die, we die, but we're going to die fighting. That was our mentality. And so the first few times you leave the wire, you're puking and everything, but after a while you kind of get used to the terrain, and and when something happens, you're ready to fight. You're ready to fight because these guys are coming to kill you, so you got to fight for your life, right? And then what happened on my incident was we just finished a patrol all day, and then all of a sudden it was evening, cooling off, nice cool evening, and man, it was we're sitting there eating our rations, and all of a sudden they started dropping mortars on our position, on our patrol base Wilson, and so I put on some of my armor and grabbed my helmet and my rifle, and I started running into one of the shelters, and yeah, that's when a mortar landed beside me. And sprayed a bunch of us with shrapnel, and I had a broken arm. And yeah, it was really traumatic, that situation. And obviously when you're there, you're just like, you don't know what's going on, and I guess I was out cold, and some guys pulled me into the building and were helping me with my wounds. But yeah, I found out I had some nerve damage in my right arm, and so they decided to send me to Germany, Landstuhl, to get some surgeries done. So I did those, and then coming home, it never really hit me right away. But further down the road, I would say my contract was coming to an end, and I didn't want to be in the military anymore. I was just done. I had nothing left in my soul. That's what I say all the time, because it's true. And I just had nothing left, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna get out. I had a plan, go to school, become a teacher, but it didn't work out because my PTSD started to creep up on me, and yeah, I fell into drinking and drugs, and I lost my family, and so a lot of things unfolded in this time. So I started reaching out for help. My destructive lifestyle, I lost my family and everything. And so what happened with my destructive lifestyle, I was at the bottom, and so I reached out for help to a couple of veterans, and they introduced me to Veterans Affairs. So back then, in the mid 2000s, it was still different. As somebody who suffers with PTSD, your anxiety and your depression are just, you're in a horrible mental space, and you're trying to navigate this bureaucracy. It's really challenging. So yeah, they helped me great, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of Veterans Affairs now today, because somebody recognized and said, hey, we got to start helping these guys out, because they're committing suicide. They're ending up homeless. We're just not doing them any justice. So, you do hear stories of guys who are members who are still struggling with the system, but there are ways, if you keep fighting to get for the help, then you will get it. You just have to have patience, and just wait it out a little while, because I wouldn't be here without Veterans Affairs. I would be, God knows, I'd probably be dead, and it's a very sad state of affairs for when you're considered a warrior, and then you come home, and you're just left wondering how you're going to live the rest of your life. It's scary. It's really, really scary, because when you have so much pride in serving, you don't really want to reach out for help. So the society tells us to bury it, man up, hold it in, be strong, be rigid. But you know what? The machine, you start to break down after a while. And that's the really, really, really sad part. That's why a lot of us are breaking down, because we can't hold it in anymore. So what do you tell somebody who's been told to never quit? That's what we have to address here. How do you tell somebody who's told to never quit, keep fighting and fighting? So that's where I come in now. And ever since I've been sober, I've been sober almost 4 years now, and I started living a spiritual life. So I'm navigating with sweat lodges and praying and meditation. And these are the little things I do every day to help me, because I just cannot survive without it. Because when my brain goes on fire, then I really have to work hard to bring myself down and extinguish the flames. Because it's really scary when the anxiety and the depression start settling in. And the last thing I do is ever want to go to that bad place. And for me to help out other veterans is what I do now too. I help out my brothers and my sisters who have served and are suffering. I organize sweat lodges. I offer, and I offer what I've learned through this process of healing, because it's what it's about, right? This healing. So, but with that, yeah, I hope I answered the question.
You did. I want to thank you so much for such an insightful answer, especially for those who may be watching who don't realize, maybe what that burden might be upon those who are serving in the forces in various positions, and kind of the situation that can occur when coming home and what that's like. So I'm going to now answer or ask a question that I'm going to pose to all three of my panelists here today. And that's, given that we had Indigenous Veterans Day earlier in this week to remember the sacrifices our veterans have given, what does this day mean to you? What does it mean to have a separate day for recognition? And how did you mark that day, or have marked that day? And I'm going to go back and ask Jimmy. Jimmy, would you be able to share a little bit from your perspective?
Yes, thank you very much. And first of all, I want to salute that young man that went through that trauma and still going through it. And I can certainly understand. I'm an elder. I'm 82 years old. I'm going to be 83 here in about 3 months' time. And you know, I understand exactly what he's going through, and this is where the federal government and people like yourself, you know, need to try and concentrate a little bit more on the Indigenous side of things, you know, from a First Nations point of view, a Métis point of view, Inuit point of view, and try and involve elders in our communities. First of all, you know, that's really important because what these people, like this young man that, you know, the things that he went through, PTSD, you know, a lot of people don't pay very much attention to that, and that is a horrible thing, you know, and it's you know, it's something that you know, you want to reach out, but then at the same time, I can understand exactly what he's talking about. Man up. You know, everybody's telling you when you're in the forces, hey, you know, man up, and you know, what's the matter with you? You know, let's get on with that. And yes, you do your job. You do what your whole purpose is for, and but then at the same time, he's witnessing all of these things, you know, and he got wounded himself, and you know, that really hits home, and that is where it's so important to have the Indigenous side of the Aboriginal side of this whole scenario involved. We need to engage our elders, you know, so that the healing process, because we had warriors when we were you know, the Métis fought for their land in Batoche, and you know, the First Nations fought for their land, and they fought for their rights to hunt, to fish, to trap, and to live in the way that they want. And you know, so we had warriors, but we were able to look after our warriors ourselves through our elders and through our own way of life. And that's the part that's missing for a lot of Aboriginal veterans, you know, is the Aboriginal side of things. And we need our elders there. We need to get them to start talking about you know, how do you do these things, you know, so that it doesn't bother you. You know, this young man that went through so much, and he's just a young guy. You know, to me anyway, I'm 82 years old. He's just a young man, and he went through so much already, you know, in his life. And can you imagine those ones in the Second World War and the First World War, the things that they had to go through, and they were not treated fairly or in a you know, in a humane way, the way like other veterans were treated. And so we need the Aboriginal side of things to intervene, to you know, to engage, to get them you know, to help us out, because we all need help. You know, sure, I'll man up, but and I'll follow the orders the way I'm supposed to, because that's what I'm here to do, and that's what I'm here for. But at the same time, when you need help, you know, we should not, you know, not be afraid to ask for it, but it has to come from the Aboriginal side of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy, for sharing. And I'm wondering if you have any comments about this question or some of what we were just speaking about regarding supports for our Indigenous veterans, or how you've marked or continue to mark, will mark Indigenous Veterans Day.
So I had to work because I'm still working. So I wasn't able to attend any ceremonies. I believe it's important to keep it separate because I think Canada, the world, they need to know that Indigenous CAF military members were not treated the same. And as things are coming to light with the residential schools and just the treatment of Indigenous peoples here in Canada, the military members and veterans and how they were treated is as important. You know, they left being proud and volunteering to go to war for Canada, and they came back and they were so mistreated. And I don't think we can't afford to have that lost, that knowledge and that recognition. Now, in regards to the, you know, we've all heard it, and if you've served in the military, suck it up, carry on. And I think now, like with mental health, that's coming more to the forefront now. I think it's not as easy to come forward. I myself have dealt with mental health issues. And I found talking with the elders, doing a smudge ceremony, taking part in a sweat lodge, I gained more from that than I have from the traditional, you know, than the mainstream medical system and mental health supports. Not saying that they didn't help me, but I think, as I said, we need to keep in touch with the Indigenous ways and the Indigenous ways of healing. And I know of non-Indigenous members that have sought it out as well, because they are recognizing the importance and significance of our traditional medicines.
Thank you very much for that. And as so far I've been saying, adding in my own little comments. Yesterday I'd given a presentation to a classroom talking about Indigenous veterans. And you know, we know the story of Tommy Prince, and unfortunately what happened to him after his return from not only the Second World War, but the Korean War, being pushed out of his own community. We're talking, you know, looking at enfranchisement, those loss of rights some community members had, simply by volunteering and going over and giving their service, giving up their bodies and their experiences. And so it always hits me quite hard knowing how these individuals have been treated. And it's one of those things I like to hear over the years, the changes that have happened. In talking to those groups, I had learned that for at least in the Atlantic, Indigenous veterans weren't allowed to put a wreath on the cenotaph until after the ceremony had been concluded. That really didn't change until the 1990s. And it hits me hard to think of all those veterans who have passed away, who didn't get to see those changes, who didn't get to see how things had evolved. And again, talking about that connection to residential schools, that's one piece that I know students are often surprised to hear, is that connection between cadet corps and the presence of these corps in residential schools being just one of those many factors that contributed to the large number of Indigenous peoples who volunteered those services during that First and Second World War. And again, how there's not that much of a spotlight on those Indigenous veterans who served, like Tommy, like the Mountain Horse family in Alberta as well. Those are ones that are just standing out, but I know that there are so many other stories that haven't been shared or spoken about. So I'm going to move into some of these other kind of roundtable questions. And just posing again to the group, what are ways that people can honor and remember veterans? And do you have any recommendations of what people can do? And I'll start with Jimmy once more, or Doug, did you get a chance to share?
Oh, it's okay. You guys can move forward.
Oh, is it my turn or?
Yes,
Hello? I'll
go back to you, Jimmy. Sorry about the mix-up.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, I do salute the young man that's on our panel right now, and you know, you are, as far as I'm concerned, you're a hero, and it's people like yourself, you know, and that's gone through so much already and so young, and I honor you, young fellow, and I call you young fellow because I'm 82 years old.
No,
anyway,
I respect that.
yeah, and I respect you and what you're trying to do, and you're trying so hard to help yourself as well. That's the key thing is, you're a warrior, and you're trying to the best of your ability, and things will start looking up. I think you're well on your way to healing yourself. I don't know whether you'll ever completely heal, because some of the people that I know that went through, similar kind of experiences, never really healed, and it's something that I'm not 100%. I don't know that much about it, so I can't. I don't want to be perceived as an expert on this field, but I can see. I'm old, and I can see what some of the traumatic experiences that veterans that were in the front lines, that were actually shot at with real bullets. And this is what people need to understand. We're not playing games here, and that's really important. Now, as far as what do we do from here, how do we continue to address this issue, which is really important? I think we need to engage our young people as much as we possibly can. I spend a lot of time talking to kids, and kids are very smart, and they absorb this thing, and they ask some real good questions. We need to start going to the classrooms. We need to start, telling those young people that, the freedom that we have nowadays was because somebody put their lives on the line. Somebody did. And our military people, even to this day, when there's a natural disaster somewhere in our country, forest fires, floods, storms, the first thing that they do is they ask the military to go in there, and the military, the vets are always the first in line to try and help out our country, and they understand that, and they know that, and they are prepared to do whatever it takes to make sure that we live our freedoms the way that that we're supposed to. I mean, this is a democratic country, and we're supposed to have freedoms, and we do, but sometimes we take our freedoms for granted, and we need to try and instill that information to people, and where it's going to happen and where it's going to have a big effect. It's not going to be like tomorrow or the next day or next month or next year even, but it's going to take time. But we need to instill that information and tell the truth. We shouldn't be sweeping things under the rug. We need to tell the truth. This young man, for example, that's on our panel, he needs to tell his story to the kids. The kids will understand that, and the kids will ask questions, and that's where it needs to continue, and that's where it's not going to die. And we need to engage our elders in that process as well, because our elders, there seems to be a split between our elders and our young people nowadays. We need to try and figure out a way to join them together, to bring the two groups together, so that the elders can bring forth their ways, and and how they did things in the old days to address these issues, and the young people who don't know some of these things. There's so many young people that don't really know exactly what it's like to be in the front lines, like this young man had to do, because he was doing his duty, and that's where I'm coming from. I would like to engage the young people and get them together with the elders as much as possible, and don't sweep anything under the rug. Just like these young people that are found in the unmarked graves. You know, the government held that, that story for so many years, and our elders kept telling us, they kept telling us, hey, there were some kids that were buried in those grounds, and we didn't, nobody did anything about it. Nobody believed it, and then all of a sudden we found them, and hey, look at that! Isn't that a horrible thing? That's part of our history. It's terrible, but it's the fact, and the facts need to be told, and the truth needs to be told. We need our elders and our young people in this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for that insightful answer. And I'm going to reach out to Anne because I know Anne had limited time today. Did you have any comments regarding this question?
I just want to add that Jim, everything you said, Jimmy, is spot on. I believe to keep our stories alive, we need to educate, share our stories with the youth, and engage with the elders, because those that have experienced the mistreatment will be gone, and we have to make sure that their stories, their experiences are carried on, and that we learn from them.
Thank you very much for that answer. Doug, did you have any comments regarding this question?
I do. No, sure. So what I was, thank you very much, Jimmy, for your wonderful comments. I really appreciate them. And Anne, thank you. What I found was, as I was serving and going through the ranks, I did experience a lot of ignorance and racism, right? But I did speak up a few times, and I said, I don't stand for that kind of stuff. And it was either me going to fisticuffs or me going to my higher rank saying, yeah, man, these guys are being really ignorant. But for the most part, I settled it with my intelligence and my heart. So, further on down, I'm reconnecting with some of the guys I served with, and I still remember the things that they said to me. And and one guy actually apologized to me. He said, Doug, I'm sorry I was so ignorant and racist. And I said to him, what is making you say this now? He goes, because I seen what my government and my ancestors had done. So reconciliation is working. So I fully appreciate. So we sat there and talked now, and now we're really close now. And he actually came to the sweats, and he's a Caucasian fellow, and but we served together in Afghanistan, so we still have that bond, right? And yeah, but always to be a bigger and better person was my objective. So, and even back then, I would try to remind these guys. I would say, do you know why that Aboriginal is drunk or high on the street? I said, do you see, or you have to understand the things that led that person to that position. So I tried explaining this to them and everything, but a lot of our guys that I served with, the white guys, are really misinformed. They were never taught the real history of the Canadian government and the residential school systems. But it's happening now, and it's really sad that our First and Second and Korean War vets were mistreated so bad. It's heartbreaking, and we could have gotten more knowledge out of them, and and we could have helped them, right? But it's just the way the government was set up at the time, and it was still setting us up for failure. They were still continuing their mandate of killing the Indian, right? So but now that we're here and everything is the lights on, like I never, ever like thought that they would find children of graves. The thought was like, I'm just like, I asked my dad, because he was a residential school survivor, and he never ever said anything to me, because it's hard to bring that pain up, right? Pain is so hard for our residential school survivors, and I give them so much credit and love, because to sit here and bring up past pains is hard, and to relive it, because I know, there's some days I don't even want to get out of bed because of my condition. Yeah, I am the son of a residential school survivor. I am a war vet with PTSD, but I'm breaking the cycles now. I do not want to carry this on to my children, because it's like living in a mental prison, and I don't want to give that to my daughters. It's too heartbreaking. But you know, um, you know, yeah, the Department of National Defense, they do need to start training, or come up with something to inform these guys, or the men and women who don't understand what the residential school system was. And that would be a huge part in reconciliation as well. And I would definitely appreciate that. Heck, I would even contribute to help educating as well, because I think that is my position now in life. Now that I'm in a healing journey, that is my job, is to help heal and correct. And that is my own personal reconciliation, breaking generational traumas and breaking cycles. That's where I need to be as well. And as Jimmy said, like, speaking to our youth and keeping that connection, there is a connection being lost there. So, going out, telling stories, telling my story, and then teaching about our Aboriginal veterans more, it can be done. We're doing it right now with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and everything, and witnessing all these wonderful things that are unfolding now. So we have to continue building, growing, and teaching. And I think we'll all learn eventually. Like, how many generations did it take to dismantle our way of life? Well, we have to look at, it's going to take a few more generations to undo this, but we have to do it with love, respect, and patience, and hard work. With that said, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doug. That was a really wonderful, again, all insightful answers to the questions I've been posing my panelists today. And it's, one of the things I like working about the NCTR is the connection to the records we have, because the statements from the TRC, those are the statements from survivors. We have so many who have passed on, where the only thing left to speak for them are these records. And so it's something I do with records related to both the world wars, taking a look at the stories, because although I don't have that individual here with me to tell me everything that's happened, I can get just a little bit of sense, a little glimmer as to what their experience was like. Even if it's not the full picture, these are stories that need to be told. Which leads me up to, I believe, what will be kind of my final question here before I double check with the Facebook group to see if there are any questions that are coming through. And that is, what is one key message that you would like to send to any youth or individuals who might be considering joining the armed forces today? What's something you would like to share with them? And I'll pass it back to Jimmy once more.
Okay. I guess the message that I would like to give to the youth, the young people, is, but we have a role to play in this as well. We need to tell them the truth. That is so important. As horrible as it is regarding those kids that were found in unmarked graves for so long, it's been under the rug. And now that we've unearthed the truth, we need to tell them the truth, and we need to tell them the truth about residential schools, and the horrible way that the federal government and the churches, played a role in this thing. They were the ones that were going into homes and taking kids. That's kidnapping. that's against the law. And a lot of these kids that were found, the majority of them probably died of I often think about this, but they probably died of natural causes. I would think. However, it really bothers me to think that some of them were actually killed. There was murder. They were murdered, and we need to tell the truth. I don't know if we'll ever find out how these children died, but they did die, and they were buried in unmarked graves, and that's something that really, really bothers me, and that's something that our young people need to know. They need to know the truth, and that's where the elders are so important to come in, because the elders have always told us. My grandfather, my grandmother, they always told me there are kids buried in unmarked graves all over around the residential schools, and nobody listened to them. And now that we've the truth has come out, and it's not done yet. That's the thing. It's not done yet. They're still finding kids that are buried in unmarked graves, and these were kids that were stolen from their homes. Can you imagine sitting there with your children, and that comes a knock on the door, and the RCMP is there along with the Indian agent and the priest? And what are they there for? They're there to pick up your kid and take the kid to a school. And sometimes they took them to a long ways from home. And that's kidnapping. That's against the law. And but they were doing it. And they were doing it, in a way that they can get away with it, because, if it's policy, they make a policy. They can make a policy. They have the power to do that over us. And if the policy doesn't work, then they legislate. They introduce legislation, and so we're still caught. And if we don't listen, we end up in trouble ourselves. End up in jail. And those are the things that we need to tell our children, and we need to tell our children about the sacrifices that were made by our veterans as well. And a good example is this young man that's on our panel. He has the potential to help us educate our children. That's the most important thing, and engage with our elders as well, and try and make that connection. But the important thing is the truth. We have to tell the truth, because our Aboriginal veterans, when they got home, they were mistreated. They were not treated in the same way that non-Aboriginal people were, and that's a fact. And we need to tell that. We need to tell that to our kids, so that they understand. So that, and I'm not saying I don't hate the non-Aboriginal people for that. They just don't know. They didn't know, and that's where our education system is. There's something wrong with our education system for not telling the truth about exactly what happened with our Aboriginal veterans in our residential schools, and the kids that are buried, that are found in unmarked graves. So that's all I have to say on that issue.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for that very expansive answer on what we really need to do, which is reiterating what you just said, is telling the truth, telling Canadians, telling our youth what has happened, and really using that as that foundation to build our work together. And I'm going to reach out to Anne. Anne, did you have any comments, what you would like to share, a key message?
When we talk about what message do we want to tell our Indigenous youth, like Jimmy said, they have to know our past. They have to know our history as Indigenous veterans, past and current, and how we were treated, or how we were treated differently. But I think they also encourage them to ask questions of current and past Indigenous military members. Now, today, we have Indigenous advisors within the defense team. I'm one of them. We have an Indigenous advisor to the chaplain branch in regards to spirituality. We have Indigenous champion for the defense team. We have Indigenous advisors, 2 that are champion. We have Indigenous recruiting advisor. Some bases already have sweat lodges. We have smudge kits available. Like, we're letting people know that if they join the forces, they don't have to leave their culture and spirituality behind. That they can embrace it and still join the military. Do we still have a ways to go? Yes, we can always, there's always room to grow and expand. And I think we can do that through networking and by learning from our youth and what they bring to the table and what they would like to see in today's military.
Perfect. And Doug, I'm wondering if you might wrap us up for this, because there was a question that came into the chat, but I think, Anne, you might have answered it a little bit. It was about the chaplaincy in the armed forces reaching out to include spiritual beliefs, but maybe we'll wrap around with that after Doug's comment.
All right. All right. Thank you, Anne, for that awesome insight on the knowing that you can get smudge kits and there's and the sweat lodges on bases, because honestly, when I was in there, we never had that. You know, it was just doing it on your own and everything. And but I'm really happy to hear that they do offer that. So as for what I tell most young people when they ask me about joining the military, I simply say, you know, you're gonna have to answer the call one day to either a conflict or, you know, or something in Canada. I said, you're gonna have to answer the call, and you're gonna have to be bold, brave, and strong, and you can't, you know, and you're gonna have to, I know you're gonna show, there's gonna be fear, but you're gonna have to overcome that. So these are many traits that you will learn in the military, because you'll have this family atmosphere that you're not alone. I said, and that what comes with the military. But with those good things, there will be bad things too. You're gonna encounter ignorance and racism and things. So you have to learn to not really absorb that, and you gotta have some tough skin. But at the same time too, don't stand for it. You can't not do anything about it, because if you don't do anything about it, it's gonna continue. The cycle is gonna keep continue. So don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and say, hey, this person is being very ignorant and racist, you know, and don't be a victim to it. Don't let it stop you from progressing in your career. Don't quit because of racism and ignorance. That's what I tell these people. Because if you do that, then then the system is winning again. You know, it's time to start navigating system, not let it navigate you. You know, let's not be victims anymore to this. Let's be a part of let's be a nation again, a people that used to navigate the earth. And, you know, we can find that balance. There's that balance there of spirituality and living in this current world we're in. We can still find it. It's just that sometimes we get a little bit lost. But if we have more people that understand it, and then it can get us back on the path. So, you know, with that said, you know, and that's what I tell the young people, you know, these are the things that you will encounter in there. But it's a great life. It's a great career. One of my favorite sergeant majors, Tim Power, he always said, there's no life like it. And it's very true. You know, I've been all over the world. I've done awesome things. I've seen amazing things. And you know what? If you have a wonderful sense of adventure, it's for you, being in military. And if you're afraid to travel, well, then you can just stay in Canada too. There's many jobs for you in the military. So, but I'm just reiterating, you know, wherever you go, there's going to be good and bad. But if you understand what you're getting into and really open your mind and heart, and you will succeed. But at the same time too, you have to stand up and not take that racism and ignorance and absorb it, but, you know, learn from it, and then report it. What I'm saying is, okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I'll just double check with Anne. Did you have any other comments you'd like to add for the question that came in regarding spiritual beliefs? Or they should say including Indigenous spiritual beliefs?
Just that, so as I mentioned, we do have an Indigenous advisor to the chaplain branch. So they work with the chaplains. We have it arranged that if, say, I'm here in Kingston and someone here in Kingston wants to speak to an elder, they go through the chaplain branch and they can arrange to go through the Defense Aboriginal Advisory Group and put them in touch with an elder. So these are things that we do have in place. Again, is it perfect? No, but we're getting better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of the panelists who joined us today, Jimmy and Doug. Thank you so much for taking the time. We've come to the end of our event, and I just wanted to just reach out and check, do any of you have any final comments you'd like to share before we close the stream? And I'll just say, Jimmy, would you like to take the floor one last time for any final comments?
Yeah, okay, I guess I'll try that. I'm going to be, I might get cut off here. I'm just close to the end of my tower here. So I'll just pull over and just sit here for a moment. No, I think everything that's been said is a good thing. At least we're trying to address the issue. That's very, very important. And I think engaging young people and elders is so important, because that's where the connection has been broken, and that's where we need to try and figure out a way to reconnect, our elders and what our mushrooms and our kokums, their responsibility, because they were the ones that had the history. They were the ones that knew the medicines and the history of our people. And the young people, they're responsible for learning that from the elders. And we need to make that connection again. Somehow we got to try and figure that out. And one of the things that we need to also be very conscious of, and that is our environment. We have a very serious issue with our environment. There's being destroyed as we speak, left and right, and we need to try and convince the governments to at least, when they're making policy, they're making legislation. I don't have anything against development. I want to see our resources being developed, in a way that that our people can make money. But our people need to get involved in that. Where I come from, they're hauling out our forest like left and right. There's over 100 semi-trailers, a week that's hauling our forest out, and they're just leaving behind a mess, one hell of a mess. And we got situations where we have a desert where we used to have forest, a beautiful forest, and we can't allow that to happen. Governments need to be aware of that. They have the power to make legislation and to leave, at least to involve, Aboriginal people, because we're not getting a damn thing out of that. All that lumber and all the trees that are being hauled out are making somebody else rich, and then they leave us behind. What they leave behind is one hell of a mess. They're going through old trap lines, and they're not taking into consideration that there's people that live there, on the trap lines, and they're not taking that into consideration when they're making legislation. They just go in there, they cut everything off, and haul it out to make somebody else rich. Some of that money needs to stay behind to help our youth. There's very few, for example, youth centers, where the kids can hang out and learn things, and get our elders to go there and talk to them and try and make that connection. that is not happening because all the money is being taken out and making somebody else rich. And we need to take those things into very serious consideration as well, because as we speak, our environment is being destroyed, and our elders are telling us that on a regular basis, and they're destroying our forests, they're destroying our rivers, our creeks, because fish, when they swim up a creek to go and spawn, they can't do it anymore because the water is so spoiled, and because they're cutting right to the edge, and there should be laws. They should have legislation. They have the power to make legislation. Don't go any closer than 1 kilometer from a creek or from a river, because that's where the fish go and spawn, and that's where the moose are, and that's where a lot of the wildlife depends on that. And they're having a serious effect on our wildlife and our forests, and Aboriginal people, the elders know that. But we need to do a lot of those things at the same time, and because that's what the veterans fought for. They fought for a clean environment where the Creator gave us a beautiful creation, the land, the trees, the forest, and all the creatures that live in it, the air, the water, and we're destroying it slowly as we speak, and we need to try and control that to a best of our abilities as well. So that's really important, and that's the message that I would like to leave with this panel as well.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for joining us and for sharing your final comments. I'm going to move to Anne. Anne, do you have any final comments you'd like to share before we end the stream?
Just one, to continue asking questions to our youth, to our elders, to our veterans, to our current serving armed forces members. I believe we can move forward together. I know many non-Indigenous allies that are passionate about us and our history and want to work with us moving forward. Again, education is key in my view, and that's how we can make sure that the past doesn't repeat itself. And to continue asking the questions of our youth: what are they looking for? What are they hoping for? As I said, I'm First Nations from BC. I'm not an expert on all things Indigenous, and I still ask questions, and I'm 53 years old. We're never too old to stop learning. And I believe every day is an opportunity, and that I think we need to keep that in mind and grasp onto it whenever we can.
Thank you, Anne, for those final comments. And we'll round out with Doug here. Doug, do you have any final comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just like to say thank you to Anne and Jimmy for sharing this panel with me. And bottom line is, when you get up every day and you go out to face the world, what are you gonna what will you do to make a difference in reconciliation, even just with yourself? Even so, that's what I get up with every day, is to what can I do to educate and make a difference and help people understand that we're not bad people. We're a beautiful culture, and and we're pulling our way out of it. And to keep the advertisement of our veterans and our serving members in the police, in your paramedics and the firemen, like we all, we have many of Aboriginal still serving in those jobs as well. So just a lot of love and respect going out to everybody, and happy Remembrance Day.
Thank you so much, Doug, and thank you to all my panelists. We have come to the end of our conversation here today. So On behalf of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us. Thank you to the audience, for those who asked questions. We advise everyone to watch for the news for our next NCTR dialogue happening this upcoming December, where we're going to be talking about wellness as we head into that holiday season. So thank you, hi, and I am now going to end the stream. So please have a wonderful rest of the day. And for Remembrance Day coming up tomorrow, I hope individuals are able to participate in some of those ceremonies as well. But thank you.